Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Above the Bar podcast, where each week we belly up to the bar with a new guest, find out what they do, who they are, and what makes them great. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. Alrighty, folks, welcome back to the Above the Bar podcast. It's your host, Sean. We are bellowing. Hold on a second. Why my instantaneously as the show starts, the 14-year-old's digging through my work bag for my tape measure. Listen, folks, if you ever want to not have kids, hang out with me and you'll find plenty of reasons to not do it. But with that being said, somebody who knows about raising kids, raising adults, raising the bar for sports for raising the level of writing and everything else, joining us for her second time. We're going to have to start getting like repeat club members and all these other things.
I want a t-shirt.
We're going to have to work on a t-shirt. Repeat. It's Miss Anne Montgomery.
Well, thank you for having me back at the bar.
We love having you back. Because listen, I still talk about when you were here the first time because I can never remember it, like at what number you were for ESPN, like what, like were you number this, number that, and I always forget it. And you reminded me today you were the third female.
Yeah, there were a couple before me, and then Robin Roberts and I were hired the same week. So it's kind of let's put it this way, there were hardly any. And there were hardly any in the newsroom. I mean, we had one woman producer. So it was, nothing but testosterone in the entire place.
Well, I mean, we're going to get into all these things, but, talking again with Anne, it's kind of like, having an old friend back at the bar because I know her story and some of you don't. If you want, I think the last episode was back in November of last year. Go check out what we talked about then. We're going to be talking about some new things today. But before we get into all that, let's go ahead and get some house cleaning done. As always, folks, maybe you can tell me your thoughts on them with signing Derrick Henry with Jamal Lewis and Patrick Ricard. Do you follow football at all?
Me?
Yeah, you.
Yeah, I do, but rarely in the off season do I pay attention to anything. And sadly, I am an Arizona Cardinals fan, which is an embarrassment to even say publicly. It doesn't even have
retirement home for the NFL.
I'm sorry?
It's the I've always said that the Arizona Cardinals are the retirement home for great players in the NFL. If you look back, Montana went there, Rice went there, Suggs went there, Anquan Bolden, after getting a ring with Baltimore, went back there.
The problem is that we take old players, but we also get young players and they don't do anything here and we trade them away and they become famous somewhere else. So yeah. It's like, I don't know why I still watch. I was their beat reporter for 2 years, so I traveled with them.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And they were so awful. It was almost like, before the Cubs won the World Series, it was like being a Cubs fan without the panache. I mean, it's just miserable. We throw things at the TV. So am I a football fan? Yes. But it's hard. So the off season, I don't pay attention.
Well, Derrick Henry from Tennessee signed with Baltimore. So you have Patrick Ricard, who's a 300-pound fullback, with Derrick Henry behind him hitting the hole while you still have to worry about what Jamal Lewis is going to do. So, oh, look, it's my cousin Stacy.
Hi, Stacy.
So, but keeping going here. So as always, folks, we got the big board for sticker and a cause. If you've got something you're supporting, something you believe in, maybe you wrote a book and you have a sticker about that book, you can reach out to us on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch, X, Instagram. Even our website is the abovethebarpodcast.com. There's a spot there where you can reach out to us. Reach out. Let us know what you got going on. I'll give you the address where to send it to. You send me that sticker, and we'll let you guys know what's going on. Well, Keaton Mitchell is a beast, Nate, but let's hope he's coming back after the ACL injury. But, you can go ahead and reach out to us. And the other thing is we got to talk about our sponsors. And our sponsors are Budget Blinds of East Greenbush and Budget Blinds of Hudson and Coxsackie, New York. Budget Blinds is your #1 window treatment company in North America. They have places in Canada and the US. They handle everything from draperies. You can have honeycomb shades, shutters, roller shades. They even now just recently announced some of their manufacturers. Maybe you love Anne's books so much. You're like, these books are everything in my life that I want these on a roller shade in my home. And you can have her book printed on a roller shade. So every time you pull your shade down, you can see the cover right there.
They might be disappointed though, because I have 6 published books. Not one of them is about sports.
It's okay though.
Yeah.
But it's okay because they could still love your books that much. And I can't wait to talk about this next one and kind of give everybody the rundown. But as always, folks, if you reach out to Budget Blinds, and they're having a sale, this Budget Blinds of East Greenbush and Budget Blinds of Hudson and Coxsackie, New York, they're having a sale this month. That sale is, when you contact them, it's 20% off your entire order, and anything you motorize is going to get an extra 5% off of that. So make sure you reach out to them. Let them know you're there to belly up to the bar. They'll take good care of you. All right, Miss Montgomery, all that stuff's done.
No.
It's all done. We're ready to get into it. Did I miss anything in your bio? Teacher, mom, sports, umpire, referee, volleyball.
No. Football, baseball, ice hockey, soccer, and basketball.
Why do you think you did volleyball?
I just, I'll tell you why. Because I became an official so I could be a good sportscaster. Because I came up, before Title IX. I did not have any back. They didn't let me play football. They didn't let me play baseball. So I decided to take the 5 main team spectator sports and become a certified official. And those sports were football, baseball, ice hockey, soccer, and basketball. Nobody cared about volleyball. Nobody cared about women's basketball like they do today. So those were the sports I picked. Primarily, I umpired baseball for 25 years, and I did football, and these are amateur levels. I did football for 40 years.
And now you brought us. All right, we got to get into it for a moment. You said people care about women's basketball right now.
Yes, they do.
But do they really?
Yeah, they're filling stadiums everywhere. And it's not just Caitlin Clark. She was the catalyst. And I'm going to tell you right now, and I hate to admit this, I never paid any attention to women's basketball. I could care less. But I watched the NCAA championship with the women, and more people watched the women's game than the men.
Yeah. Absolutely. It was right here in Albany.
Yeah, and they are selling out stadiums. The other young ladies whose names I can't remember off the top, the 3 or 4 of the top 5 women who were drafted are incredible. It is a game changer. And we have been waiting, as a woman who was in the sports world for most of my life, I've been waiting for this. I've been waiting for people to care. And they do. And all I can think of is that a lot of the young girls who've grown up after Title IX have played, and their daddies wanted them to play, and dads want to take their daughters. And once people have daughters, it's different. And I'll give you an example. There's a gentleman here that was part of the media when I was working here in Phoenix. And some of the guys weren't very nice to me. And years later, like 2 years ago, I ended up on a radio show that one of these former guys is running. And live on the air, he goes, Annie, I want to apologize. I said, why? He said, I wasn't very nice to you when you were here. I said, I never thought you were mean to me. He said, it was all behind your back, and I feel horrible. And guess what? He's got a couple of daughters. He didn't have them then. And once you're raising girls, you go, hey, wait a minute. Why don't they have the same opportunities? Why don't they? So I think things are finally changing, and it's taken so friggin' long. I don't know why. But I'm glad. And I will tell you, I never thought I'd watch women's basketball. Now it's cool. Now I will watch.
So I don't watch any pro basketball. I love college basketball. I've always loved college basketball. I'm a big Terps fan. And Cody just popped up. She says, hooray. She just started writing her own book.
Good.
Elephant Shoes and Butternut Squash. Who knows what that
fascinating title, if that's the title.
It probably is the title. Cody is the free spirit that floats on in for us and floats on out, and then she'll float back in. But, I guess, I watched my daughter. She played girls college basketball. She played high school basketball, won a state championship here in New York. She was part of their first ever NCAA appearance. And they were, very small. I think they might have been a MAC school, like nobody was paying them any mind, but I don't know.
Yeah, I went to a MAC school. Watch it.
They were tiny.
Miami of Ohio. Let's
Yeah,
be kind.
There's like 7 people on
Cradle
all
of
the
coaches, Eric Parsegan, Woody Hayes. Come on.
Well, okay, I'll give you Woody Hayes. I'll give you Woody Hayes. I don't know the
I'm
other
just
one.
saying, before you had a daughter, did you ever think about women's sports at all? Did you
No,
care?
no. And I'll be honest, I really still, I only went for her.
And did you cheer? And were you glad she was out there?
For her.
Okay, Dad.
Annie, listen, I'm the person that, like, I can't stand, like, I think women's sports are for women and only women should play in women's sports. I don't care how you were born. I'll be the first.
Now we're going a whole different direction.
But I'm not going to go down that road. I'm not going to go down that road because I do think that, when I watch them, but I just, what I wish they would do for women's sports that would make it better. Stop changing it for women. Here's what I mean. Why do they use a different size basketball and hoop? Why in women's lacrosse is it nowhere near the same physical sport as men's lacrosse?
And why do we make women play softball? Help me.
Right. Thank you.
Women should be playing baseball. And
exactly.
People get angry. I'm like, I'm not dissing girls who play softball. Great for them. But there's no reason women can't play baseball. And for years they went, oh, they're not strong enough. They can't run 90 feet instead of 60 feet. That's ridiculous. We know women can play baseball, but guess what? There are no girls baseball teams in high school. Why not? They go, well, we can't get enough girls to play. The girls can try out for the boys team.
They start off on the same T-ball teams.
Yeah, no, it's rare.
And here in New York, they're on the same T-ball teams.
But they shouldn't be. They should have girls teams. They should, as you grow up, it's different. And I think that we need to have girls teams in baseball. It's a different sport. And you know why? I know this because I umpired baseball for 25 years. And every once in a while they said, we don't have a softball umpire. Would you come over here and do this game? It's not the same sport. It's not even remotely the same sport. I've seen it from the best seat in the house, right behind home plate. It's not the same sport. I want girls to play baseball. And if you ever saw Field of Dreams, they could play baseball back in the 40s. Why can't they do it now? And what the National Association, High School Sports Association says, well, we don't get enough girls who want to play. Here's how we fix that. You start them playing in Little League so that they learn those very difficult skills, catching, pitching, throwing, batting. These are really defined skills. Yeah. This is not football where you go knock that guy over or take this ball and run that way. Those are not defined skills. Okay.
I would agree with you.
Unless you're the offensive lineman, that's a whole different thing. But we've got young ladies who are trying to pick up these skills as 9th graders in high school, and it's too hard. But we've got boys who've been playing since they were 6. Let's get some girls teams. Let's let the girls play baseball. That's what I would really like to see. Did I get off on a tangent? I'm sorry. I'll have another drink. I haven't had one yet, but that's okay.
But no, so you understand what I'm saying? Like, stop changing the sport.
Yeah, they should play with the same basketball. They should
100%.
And I realize they play with a slightly smaller ball. In softball, of course, the ball is bigger, but it's harder. I was proven wrong in that. I always thought a baseball was harder, but apparently it's not. But you can't tell me that girls can't play at this with the same equipment, with the same times. I mean, the girls basketball, they even play quarters. I prefer quarters myself, and I don't know why the men don't play quarters. But
I didn't know that.
Yep.
No, that was a difference. So and folks, if you're just joining us, make sure you're checking out AnnieMontgomeryWriter.com, just like it sounds. Make sure you're seeing what she's got going on. If you're finding Annie through me or me through Annie, give us a like, share, follow, all those things, because that's how important. And listen to me. I could sit and talk to sports with her all night long because she's one of the most knowledgeable people I know about sports. She has a great outlook on it. She doesn't pull punches with any of it. Cody just popped up here. She said she wanted you to know, Annie, that it is the title and subtitle, and will be something like embracing the mess on the path to your dreams or the soul's path for mess to manifestation. I don't know yet. And then she remembers you. Hey, Annie's been on here before, right? New hairdo though. I think anyway, it looks nice.
I can explain that, Cody. 9 weeks ago, I had spinal fusion surgery. And I have a scar, but I'm really disappointed. I was looking more for biker girl bar fight,
Nice.
fight. I was really upset with the surgeon. I said, "You couldn't do better than this little thing." And so because I couldn't wash my hair or anything, I just cut it all off.
I like it. I'm digging it. I'm digging it right there.
I like it.
You know, and look, I'll make you a deal. I'm going to make you a deal. If you find yourself on the East Coast, on the right coast, talking sports for one last moment before we get into the books and everything, I'll make you a deal. If you're here, I will take you to go see an indoor box lacrosse game.
I have not seen that. I love lacrosse. I grew up in New Jersey and we had lacrosse when I was growing up.
Oh, yes.
But girls couldn't play, of course. So anyway, yeah, no, I love lacrosse. It's very, it's big in the East. In Arizona, they don't even know what it is. But
well, interestingly enough, though, they've got it out there. University of Denver has a huge college programs, won national titles before.
We may have them here, but in high schools, I've never seen. Maybe it's coming up. I don't know. But
yeah.
It was something I grew up with a long time ago in New Jersey. So.
And Cody says your hair you wear it well.
Thank you.
Glad your surgery went well. But
I have a lot of new metal in my spine. I've told my children.
You're heavy metal. You're true heavy metal.
And because I shattered my leg and I've got titanium plate and 11 screws in my leg, and I now have bolts and screws in my neck. I told my children when I die, I'd like to be cremated, and I want you to get all the metal parts out and make a wind chime and hang me in the yard.
Nice.
And I was in that. That's what I want. And the kids
love every bit of that. I love every bit
hang
of
me
that.
in the yard with all my metal.
I love every bit. I wonder what they do in those situations when
they
people
take it out with a magnet. After
really?
They toast you. They go with a magnet and they take the metal bits out. So just put them in a bag, take them home, and make a wind chime out of me.
I love it. Like you might be on to actually an entirely new business proposition.
Yeah.
Where like cremation, and if any metal bits, you send it to Annie, and she will make wind chimes out of your loved ones and send them back.
I'm just saying, I have so much. Remember when they told us sports were good for us?
Mm-hmm.
They lied. I mean, I've had rotator cuff surgery twice. I've broken 8 bones. I've now had spine surgery, and I'll have to have a second fusion in my lower spine. And most of this is from sports. So they lied. They did.
But, look, I mean, 20 years in the Marine Corps, and I didn't realize it till somebody made the comment. I was watching something. The guy goes, "Well, they train like athletes their entire time that they serve," and I'm like, and I guess when I think about how an athlete trains, I'm like, no, these dudes are like football and what, and then you realize what we were doing, and we're like, no, yeah, we did.
How are your knees?
Oh, my knees are shot to shit.
Mine are too.
when I tore an ACL, MCL, and meniscus a couple of years ago. When I squat down, I can get down there. The process of getting back up just sounds like somebody taking dried spaghetti and just twisting it, and it's just like, I don't know if you can hear that. That's what it sounds like every time.
I was an ice skater from the time I was 5 to 25. And most of that was ice dancing and or hockey officiating. And I had my first knee injury at 12. All right. So I'm just saying now, if I could go back in my little time machine, I realize I would do it all again. So I have to stop complaining about it.
Yeah, I wouldn't change this thing about it. That's funny you talk about time machine. You heard the 6-year-old running around. Him and I are going to go to San Diego in August to go see my old CO retire. And I told him, I said, we're going to be time travelers in August. He's like, huh? I said, we're going to be time traveling. He says, I don't understand, Dad. I said, we're going from the East Coast to the West Coast. So we're going to go 3 hours back in time. So we're going to go on an 8-hour trip, but we're only going to actually see 5 hours. He's like, so this morning when I got up, he goes, Dad, I thought we were time traveling today. I'm like, no, man, we got We got some time, but we're going to be doing it. All right. One more. Cody's got another question for you. She wants to know, do you do heavy metal detox for the body?
No, I don't. No. But I have 2 family members who heavy metal is their thing. So,
I don't even know what that is. What is a heavy metal detox?
well, I'm talking about actual music, heavy metal.
Oh,
It means that we have metals in our bodies because of all the junk we eat and the air
right.
we breathe and everything. And there's supposed to be detox for that. I think that's what you mean, Cody, right?
That's probably what she means. She's very into like all these things, like the she yells at me, trans and dance and all these other things.
Well, what I have is titanium. So that's even one that the airports don't mind, because I can go through the machines. But they always say, do you have metal in your body? I'm like, yes, I do, but it's titanium. Go over here. Okay. Titanium is good. They don't mind titanium. I hope it doesn't rust or anything. I don't know. I feel like the Tin Man, you know.
Well, let's get into these books, Annie. So now you've got 5 books already. Wolfcatcher, The Castle, Wild Horse on the Salt, A Light in the Desert, The Scent of Rain.
Yes.
But these all kind of have a very Southwest vibe to them.
Am I all of my previously published books take place in Arizona. Even though I'm a Jersey girl, you know, of my birth, I've been here 30 years. I love the desert. It's magnificent. I think I told you before, I'm a mineral collector, so I've spent quite a bit of time in the wilderness areas. And so my books take place in various parts of Arizona, which is a very diverse state. It's not all desert. We have mountains, we have streams, we have forests.
Scottsdale.
Yeah, that's a town. But I'm talking about wild places. And so all of those books, as I said before, I don't write about sports at all, which people find strange. They're about societal issues, environmental issues, like Wild Horses on the Salt. We have a massive wild horse problem here. Some people, oh my gosh, yes. Some people want to feed them. Some people want to kill them. I mean, it's a mess. But, you know, I'm pretty sure I told you that I taught in a Title I school.
Yes.
For 20 years. In a Title I school, of course, the vast majority of my students lived in poverty, which meant they were in gangs, there were drugs, they were abused, they were neglected, they were raped. It was horrible. So a lot of my books are based on societal issues that I came in contact with as a teacher, because I was a spoiled middle-class kid who had no idea that children lived like this. And it's how I became a foster mom. You know, all my kids were my students at one point. So that's what I wrote about. My new book, as of tomorrow, I will have half a dozen books. My new one, entirely different, historical fiction, based on World War II.
Well, and let's not just like you're kind of like based on World War II. Yeah. Like
no. This is very serious, and it's called Your Forgotten Sons. And it's about the men who served in the Graves Registration Service. And you may know what that is, but maybe your listeners don't. The Graves Registration men were the ones who located, identified, and buried the dead. That was their job. And we have 36 American cemeteries. In 36 countries and territories, we have American cemeteries where their American soldiers are still there. And these men built those cemeteries. So if you go to Normandy, they're the guys that built that. And I went to school in Luxembourg, and there's one of them there, and they're all through France and Germany. And they didn't just pick up Allied soldiers and identify. They had to bury the Germans.
I didn't know that.
Well, here's the picture. And the gentleman I wrote about, this is inspired by a true story, a man named Sergeant Bud Richardville. And I'm going to back up a little bit for you. I was given this assignment. I didn't. My dearest friend was at Johns Hopkins Hospital, and she was having spinal surgery, and it was very possible she was going to wake up paralyzed from the waist down. And her husband was a soldier, 3 tours of Afghanistan, Iraq, terrible PTSD, can't be in a hospital. He was in a bad situation in Iraq where a lot of his men were dying. And so she said, I need you to be my healthcare power of attorney.
Oh, wow.
So I flew to Baltimore. The night before the surgery, she hands me a Ziploc bag. And she said, no matter what happens to me, I want you to tell Bud's story. And Bud was her uncle. even
Oh,
though
wow.
her mother had kids like 20 years apart. So Bud was actually her uncle. She goes, I want you to find out what happened to him because he didn't come home. And so, because I wanted her to feel better, I went, yes, Reg, I will tell Bud's story. And then she, silly me, then of course she walked out of the hospital. She was fine. And I'm like, oh crap, I promised. No.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So she did. And so I had these 75-year-old letters at the time. Plus, I had a whole bunch of family stories. He has about 100 not ancestors, people that are, family members still living, and got stories from them about him and what happened to him and his life. And so this book is about him. Now it's also about all the men that served. And I will tell you, I believe, and I wasn't in the military, but I believe this is the most difficult job in the military because Bud Richardville was at Normandy. So his
Which
man,
80 years tomorrow. That's
80 years
80 years tomorrow is Normandy, storming
yep,
the beaches.
and his men hit the beaches right behind the first wave. And guess what? 10,000 guys died that first day, on both Germans and Allied soldiers. 10,000 dead people on the beaches, in the water, in the trees, everywhere. And so they had to collect them quickly because the incoming soldiers would be demoralized by 10,000 dead bodies in pieces. And they also, it's a disease thing. It's a problem.
Yes,
So
that's the
they
biggest.
they were trained. They have to get the bodies quickly. They have to figure out how to identify them. And some had dog tags, some didn't. Sometimes it was just a foot. And they had to then bury them near the beach. And then later they had to go back and dig them up and rebury them in the Normandy cemetery we know today. And they followed all. I mean, now part of the problem with doing this book was that all of Bud's military records were destroyed. You may know that in 1973 in St. Louis, the military records depository burned to the ground. The Army's records from 1912 to 1960, anybody who was discharged during that time, were destroyed, and Bud's were destroyed then. So I have no military records to go on. All I have is his letters home to his mother, to his brother-in-law, who is Regina's father, and to other family members, to find out what happened. And of course, soldiers were told not to write what they were doing. He told only his brother-in-law that he was Graves registration. And so all I had was the postmarks on his letters, and I followed him. The dates and the locations were Normandy, the Battle of the Bulge, Patton in Czechoslovakia, all over Germany and France. And so that's the basic part that I have. But then I tried to research the Graves Registration Service, and there's like nothing on them.
Now it's like what's been, so that concept is not really a concept today that we would even think about.
We don't have it today. We had that turned into the mortuary services in Vietnam, and we don't bury people. We just put them on a plane and they're home in 24 hours. Right. So this was an entirely different thing. There were so many people dying that we couldn't put them on ships. We couldn't send them home. They had to be buried, and they had to be buried quickly, again, for morale reasons and for health reasons. So these men did nothing but pick up the pieces. And, you read books about the World War II, you see movies, you see guys shooting each other and planes falling from the sky, but then the camera pans away and nobody says, oh gosh, what happens with all the parts that are left behind? So think about what these men had to do. Think about their minds after a while. And then put on top of that, who do you think cleaned up the concentration camps? Dachau. Our guys went in and did that.
Well, these are the things that no one wants. The closest I've ever seen is in Saving Private Ryan.
Exactly.
He tells the guy to come on with us, and he tells him, no, I can't. I've got to stay here. I've got to clean these things up. I've got my unit. In the Marine Corps, we call them red patchers. If you ever seen a Marine, and on the square, he'll have it on his cover and on his trousers, he'll have a red square sewn into it. That's Landing Support Battalion, LSB. So their job is anything on that beach, to clear it, to prepare it, to help, equipment that's being brought in. It's all landing support
It's
guy.
quartermasters, right?
Well, no, quartermasters is a different thing. So
Well,
that's
lots of people were all part of the quartermasters.
that's a different thing. So
okay.
landing support deals with when everybody gets to the beach, how they're getting to the beach, and then getting them back off the beach,
Okay.
and making sure nothing is left behind. Landing support battalion. But in all this, and Cody, I'll get to your question here in a minute. Some of the things I'm curious about, though, is going from, being an author and writing all these very Arizona focused books, about, like you said, issues, personal issues, people dealing in Arizona, dealing in these areas, impoverished areas, to writing about somebody who was real, that things were real out there for this person, and then just the military side to it in itself. Do you feel like, okay, book number 7 is going to go that route, or do you feel like, no, I want to go back to my roots of what I've been writing about?
No, I honestly, I was a reporter, and I have written about sports teams and how they make potato chips. Okay. I can write about pretzels. I can write about dairy farms. So a reporter is a reporter. I feel I can write about any topic. I mean, I've written about religious cults and PTSD and domestic terrorism. And so there are a lot of things that just aren't necessarily Arizona. They just happen to be based here. So
Right.
the location isn't a big deal. What troubles I had was I got this assignment from Regina in 2019. 2020, the pandemic hit. And I was going to go to France and follow Bud's postmarks. And
Okay.
and that, as a reporter, I want to see and smell and hear a story. I can't write without doing that. So I was kind of frustrated because I couldn't go. And then I realized I was such a dope because I mentioned before that I spent part of my like 6 months of my junior year in Luxembourg, which is right smack in the middle where the Battle of the Bulge was, right? And I studied primarily World War I to World War II. That's what I studied. So I had the experience of the war. I know a great deal about World War II. I'm a World War II buff, always have been. And so I had that knowledge, and I had the sights and smells and sounds of Luxembourg that I've never forgotten. It was one of the most wonderful times of my life. So I already had the knowledge in my head. That's how I managed to write it during a pandemic. Now, would I write another one about World War II? I probably could, but this was a command performance. I mean, Regina, by the way, she's here at my house right now because the launch is tomorrow here in Phoenix.
Okay.
So yeah, she said, do this. I'm like, yes. I mean, we've been 40 years. Of course, I promise again. I don't know what I'll write after this. I know this has been a difficult book. It's necessarily gruesome, and there's nothing I can do about that. And I think that's why a lot of people didn't want to publish it originally. And that's what also saved me is there was a lieutenant colonel who was a captain at that time in the Graves Registration Service. His name was Showman, and he wrote a book called Crosses in the Wind that I found. Actually, Regina found it. And I got an old copy of it, and it was about the Graves Registration Service and the men he served with. It is horribly graphic. Because Bud didn't write about his experiences too much. So I took what happened to Showman's men and I used those stories. For example, you know what a Higgins boat is, right?
Yes.
Okay. So Normandy, here comes a Higgins boat and it gets hit by a shell and it flips. Almost all the guys are killed. A couple get out. A couple weeks after Normandy, they take one of our bunch of our guys, our Graves registration guys, take them back to the beach and go, okay, we have a problem. There's a Higgins boat out there underwater, and we need to get some bodies out. Now, this is weeks later.
Oh.
And there's no scuba gear. There's no snorkels. They're like, strip down to your skivvies, keep your boots on. There's sharp metal down there. And go in the water. Here's a net. Pick up pieces.
Do what you can.
Yeah, they had to, and they have to bring them up. If the bodies floated, great. If they didn't, they had to put things around them and float them and get them up there. And some guys were just picking up pieces and nets. I mean, in the water. I mean, how do you get over that?
Yeah, no, you don't. You don't. You never get over that. So as you're writing this, and I think you kind of answered Cody's question, which was, did you start with the title or the content? I'm going to say you started with the content here on this one. The way
I
it was
will
handed
say
to you.
this in answer to her question. The last letter Bud wrote home to his mother, I watched him disintegrate through his letters. I watched him, even though
Really?
he tried very hard. He married a very strange woman that tortured him. There were family rumors that he was in love with another woman in Europe. So there's kind of a love story in there too.
Hmm.
And he was Catholic and married and conflicted. And his last letter home to his mother, he signed "Your Forgotten Son."
Oh,
And
wow.
my agent at the time, she's retired, I miss her. She said, we seem to have forgotten all of these men. Let's
Oh, yeah.
let's call it "Your Forgotten Sons." Because even the other military men, there's a scene in Schumann's book where he says there's trucks of they're bringing bodies, they're in the trucks, and the Graves guys are driving down a road, and they're American soldiers marching down the road, and they step to the side as the trucks came by, and the American soldiers turned their backs on them. They wouldn't even look at them.
Mm.
I thought, how sad is this? They were doing a job.
That nobody wanted.
What's a tougher job? And none of
Right.
them wanted to be there. They all, some of them revolted and said, we don't want to be there when they were in boot camp. And they said, you don't have a choice. You're going. Well, there were guys that said, hey, I came to shoot Japs and I came to shoot Germans and I'm not going to bury the dead. And they said, yeah, you are. That's what you're doing. Nobody cared. And they had, guys who were architects designing the cemeteries. And if you go there today, there are beautiful, elegant, graceful places that used to be killing fields.
Oh, look, you don't even have to go to Europe. You can drive. You were just in Baltimore, the Battle of Chesapeake, War of 1812, Civil War, Revolutionary. That's
There were guys then that had to do this. This isn't
yeah.
new. It's always something that the military stays away from. On top of that, the book deals with mental health issues of soldiers, and
Oh,
we
God,
have
it's such a
17 to
different
20 veterans/service people committing
22 a
suicide
day.
every day. And the military, and we've had some pushback with this. They go, oh no, we're doing everything we can to help our soldiers. I'm like, yeah, but soldiers aren't going to tell you they're suffering. They don't want to ruin their careers because they know it will ruin their careers. So I don't think they're doing enough. And I know the military can do better. And I know, forgive me, I wasn't in the military, so maybe I shouldn't be speaking out. But it used to be that 80% of the men who were severely injured in battle died. Now 80% of them live.
Do you hear that?
Hear what?
I don't know if
it's one of my cats.
Oh, it's your cat. I just sent my wife a text message and I said,
sorry.
No, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to pause you. But I'm like, I just sent my wife a text message a couple of minutes ago, and I'm like, tell my son Lucas, I was like, tell him to stop yelling upstairs.
No, it's my cat. My cat knows it's dinner time. But in any case,
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I know the military can do better because now we save 80% of the severely injured soldiers where we didn't. Now we have mass units, we get them on planes. We fixed that, help to fix that problem. And I think we can do better with mental health issues, especially when you have soldiers dealing with such horrible situations.
So we'll take a left turn for a minute into that. And I'm going to say it's such a double-edged sword. So when you're on active duty, we say nobody wants to go see the wizard. That's what we call it. Going to see the wizard. You don't want to go see the wizard because you don't want your career shot to shit.
Yep.
And the other side to it is sometimes you just, you don't want to tell your buddies in the barracks anything because you don't want to get it back to the command. You don't want somebody to find out about it. So you're like, well, you know what? It'd be cool if I could talk to somebody, especially if you're coming from current society where
it's acceptable.
Well, I don't even know if it's acceptable as much as it's shoved in your face.
It's in the news every day. We talk about kids with mental health issues and adults, and call if you have suicidal thoughts, please call this hotline. We face it today, but the military doesn't really do that.
And we don't, because the other side to it is if I go and I see the wizard and I'm just looking for a conversation, like, hey, look, you know what? I've had a bad last couple of weeks. I'm dealing with separation anxiety, which what people don't realize, that's the worst of the service, is especially 18-year-old kid. You've been told all your life, I love you, you're great, you're special, you're wonderful. And then you get sent off to, especially in the Marine Corps, you get sent to Marine Corps boot camp. You ain't shit. Ain't nobody love you here.
Yep.
Nobody cares about you. You stink. And I'm gonna crush your soul and your spirit. And you get home for 10 days from boot camp, and somebody's now back to telling you love you, you're special, you're wonderful. And then it's back to MCT, Marine Combat Training, your job school, and you're off to these things. That's like the first real trauma for all of us. And you may just want to talk to somebody, but the problem is you go have that conversation, and the wizard then goes and sends your command something. Hey, this person needs to come see me on a regular basis. You've got deployments. Now I'm not, either you feel like I'm going to be looked down on because I'm not with my unit doing what I really want to do, or I'm going to be looked at as I'm a liar and I'm just trying to get out of things. That's truly how it's looked like on active duty.
It's exactly as I said. It can hurt your career, and
100%.
it shouldn't be that way. It shouldn't be that way. And we expect, especially in World War II, we expected all those men to come home and be just fine. My dad was on a destroyer escort and looked at a kamikaze that got so close to him he could see the pilot's eyes before that plane was shot into the sea. You think my dad ever got over that?
No.
My gentle, sweet father, who's had nightmares his whole life about that kamikaze and the dead pilots on the ship and the guys who he went down in the water to get out of the oil slicks. Yes, to me, we should be able to allow them to talk about these things. But in Bud's time, you came home and you shut that. You didn't talk about anything. And if you even acted like you were freaking out, and how long do you think you can pick up bodies like that?
Right. Yeah, that's a different, like that in themselves is a different animal.
There was a city in France, right on the coast, called Brest, and it was the Germans took it over and they used it as a submarine base, and so that's how they controlled the North Atlantic. And so when the Allies said we got to bomb this place to get rid of the submarine base, so they dropped leaflets telling all the French people, please leave, please leave, please leave. And the French people went, no, and they had caves, this big cavernous area underneath the city. And so they put a hospital and beds and food. And so when the Allies came to start bombing, everybody ran down there. Thousands of people ran down there, including Germans. And guess what? There was a fire.
Yep.
Thousands. Burned. Thousands.
Oh, really?
6 deep bodies. 6 weeks later, I read in Schumann's book, they had the graves guys called them into Brest and said, we need your help. There's nothing left of the city, by the way. There's one thing standing and everything else is destroyed. And they said, we need you to go down there in the caves, and we need you to sort through the bodies and get rid of the Germans. We don't want the Germans in there. We want just French people in there, and we're going to seal it up as a mass tomb. And they sent our guys down there 6 weeks later with bodies layered upon children. And you pick up a body and it falls apart because it was burned. Our guys had to do that.
Right. Now, yeah, this is an amazing book. I mean, just the entire concept of it, Annie. And folks, we're getting close to closing the bar here soon. If you're looking to know more about what Annie's got going on, it's AnnieMontgomeryWriter.com. The book actually comes out tomorrow on June 6th, the 80th anniversary of D-Day. It's for it's gosh,
Your Forgotten Sons.
I almost said Our Forgotten Sons. Your Forgotten Sons. Mm-hmm. It's an amazing story. She's an amazing writer. Listen, if there's anyone I could say that I know that I could trust to write something, and if you're not watching the live version, make sure you come back and look, and you can see all the covers of the sports magazine she wrote. This is not a sports book, but you know what? I think that's kind of par for the course. You know, sports is your passion, but investigating, writing, that type of thing is who you are at the heart of, you know, that reporting side of you.
Telling stories. I love to tell. That's the Irish in me, probably. I like to tell stories. And
now, was there, what I was going to say is there anything, you know, and I asked this earlier about writing other stories, like, you know, and I don't know if there's a book written about this. I wonder if Cody's still out there. She can go look it up for me. You know, the Battle of Iwo Jima.
Yes, my father was there.
Oh, your dad was on Iwo Jima.
He was on a ship.
Okay.
beaches.
shelling the beaches. A lot of people don't know this. If you go to the Marine Corps Museum in Quantico, Virginia, they have a wall, and on this wall is the eagle globe and an eagle globe and anchor to signify every Marine that died on Iwo Jima.
Yeah.
And then there's Navy insignias to indicate every sailor that died on Iwo Jima. But you know what? There's only one of. There's one Coast Guard insignia.
Really?
One Coast Guard insignia. He was a Coast Guardman that operated a landing craft, and there was only one of them, and he died on Iwo Jima.
I've never heard that.
Yeah. So that's why, like, when you were talking about this, like, a lot of people, that type of service that you're talking about, a lot of people don't know about that. But I think something like, hey, there was one guy from the Coast Guard. Somebody's probably written a book. I don't know. But I would be interested in stuff like that. Now, with the book, any plans of doing, like, I'm an audio guy because I drive around, I work. And any thoughts or plans for an audio version of this?
I have no control over that. My publisher decides what happens. I have a paperback and an ebook right now, but they drop at different times. There'll be a hardcover. There'll be a large print one for people that are visually impaired. And whether there's an audiobook or not, that's up to them. And people go, well, why don't you narrate your books? I just haven't. I get to a point where I can't read them anymore. I've seen.
Now, what do you mean? What do you mean? Why couldn't you?
I guess I could, but I just haven't had. I don't find a thrill in it as much as I like to talk. I really, I up until now, I haven't wanted to read my own books, and I have a dear friend who was a Broadway actress. And she narrated my last one, so I can't compete with that. But I don't know. There could be. We'll see what happens.
Now, which one was the last one? Because listen, you've got a lot of books.
The Castle, I think, was the last.
So The Castle was the last one you wrote?
Yeah, that's about a serial rapist. That's suspense thriller. I have all kinds of, I write in like 5 genres. My agent hated me because it was, suspense thriller. Who's the rapist? He's someone she knows. And that also, the protagonist was military. She was Coast Guard, and
my son was in the Coast Guard. My son was in the Coast Guard. Call them puddle pirates.
Well, we need them. We needed them in World War II. They were helping to ship things.
Well, they were. But do you know what they were back in those days? They weren't. They're never been part of the military. You know that, right?
Technically, I know. But didn't they fight for a long time to get military benefits after World War II?
Well, they've always had a fight for them, but they were Department of Transportation, and they've always been Department of Transportation up until in times of war. They then get added to the Department of Navy, and then they go back to Department of Transportation, and then after 9/11, they became part of the Department of State.
Well, to me, they deserve whatever other military people get. I mean, they're doing a service that we need. I mean, come on.
My son gets all of his benefits and everything because of it. So what else we got? I mean, Annie, you've got books, you've got podcasts, you've got all the sports stuff. This coming, and folks, look, you've got to check this book out. And if you want to see any other Annie's books, again, it's AnnieMontgomeryWriter.com. See what she's got going on there. I get. Oh, look, there's my aunt. She was a Marine, and
thank you, Linda.
She always laughs because I tell her all the things that female Marines did during my time, and she's like, "Oh no, I didn't do none of that. I wouldn't have done none of those things." She was like, she worked at the Pentagon, and she didn't do none of those things. Like, she wasn't going out and like combat training or any of that stuff. Her world as a service member was women filled roles so men could go fight.
Well, I'm gonna suggest a book to you and her. It's called The Women, and it's about written by Kristen Hanna, and it's about the women who were nurses in Vietnam. I thought my book was graphic. It's incredibly graphic, but it's about a number of women who were nurses and how they were treated. It was bad. I mean, they were in jungle areas, didn't hold a gun, but they were putting the guys back together. It was harrowing. But then when they came home, and they all had post-traumatic stress, and the VA would say, "Come to the VA, we can help you with your problems." They would walk into meetings and the men would throw them out It was,
Really?
you're not really a soldier. You didn't see battle. They were the ones putting the kids back together and holding their hands as they died and doing surgeries when they weren't surgeons because there were no surgeons around. I mean, they were totally screwed up. They came home to, of course, all the crap that everybody came home, all the soldiers came home to from Vietnam. And the VA wouldn't help them because they weren't real soldiers. And today, if you go to Washington, D.C., on the mall, there has been for a decade or maybe more the women's nurse, the nurses sculpture, where there's a military nurse, an army nurse, holding a soldier dying in her arms. And you know what's all over those? There are a couple nurses in that. They're all of these hair scrunchies. You know, women hold their hair back with scrunchies. And I'm like, why are these all over this sculpture? And a docent came through and was giving a tour, and she said, the reason those are there is, she said, when men are getting down to doing work that's really tough, they roll up their sleeves. When women do, they pull their hair back.
I love it. That's so cool. That makes sense.
That nurses, military nurses, had come by and placed those there. And that is a book you have to read. It is
What's
riveting.
it called again?
It's called The Women.
The Women.
Women by Kristen Hanna. It was New York Times bestseller list 2 weeks ago. Fabulous. You want to read about war from a woman's perspective. And these women were tough. And the protagonist is a wealthy, woman who's just expected in that time to get married and marry somebody rich. And she ends up going because her brother went. And it is quite, and she gets there in her perfect white little uniform. And then the other women who are already nurses are in their shorts and their army boots and their green shirts. And they're like, oh, please. And it's amazing. And that they had to fight to get any kind of benefits, any kind of help. They got no help because the men said, you don't belong here. You're not a real soldier.
No, I listen, we actually, in every October, or on October, November, we sponsor with, Women's Veterans Alliance, which is a all women's, veterans group that focuses on helping women and women after their time in the service. Cause it's interesting, as somebody who recruited for 12 of my 20 years and putting, women into the service and watching them come home. It's, I've talked to female service members where they're like, yeah, I served. And people are like, no, you didn't.
It's horrible. It's horrible.
They really get, like, a guy could walk, and it's funny to me because I've seen other men who they walk around with a short haircut and they just try to puff up a little bit. And guys would be like, did you serve, man? Were you in the military? And they're like, no, I just walk like this. And it's like, you're a douche.
Or you're in the military. Did you see combat?
I get asked that all the time. Yeah. I get asked that all the time. People are like, did you ever go anywhere? I'm like, went lots of places. Why? Like, where? And they're like, did you ever see combat? Nope. And they're like, what? I'm like, no. I did 20 years. 12 of them of my 20 were on recruiting duty. I dealt with ignorant parents who knew nothing about the services.
Do you agree that those female nurses saw combat?
Absolutely.
They were told they didn't. And they were being shelled in jungles, in little mass units, shells falling, nurses, people getting killed, but they weren't really in combat.
Yeah, no, listen. Again, I think it's a story for the time frame.
Yeah.
I mean, I just finished Henry Ford's book, My Work, My Life, or My Life, My Work. And in Henry Ford's book, he's like, we hire women, but not if they're married. Like,
of course.
Okay, and that book was published in 1922.
And it's not ancient history. My mother in the 1970s went to the bank. She had a job. She had a college degree. She was a reporter in the 1940s, and she went to get a bank account. And I was with her. Yeah, I'm sorry, ma'am. You can't. She had her own job, her own money, and my mother, she could be really nasty. And she stood there and yelled until the bank president came, and my mother got her bank account without my father's signature.
Yeah, isn't that amazing?
It wasn't allowed. And when I was a teacher, I would tell kids, look, ladies, life hasn't always been easy. And they were like, I'm like, it's not ancient history. It really isn't.
My mom will tell you, she graduated from high school. She was, I think it was University of Maryland, she was accepted to. And my grandfather told her, women don't go to college.
Yeah, my mother was the only woman with a college degree in our street when I was growing up. Nobody understood. They thought she was crazy. They're like, and she worked. Oh my God, the horror.
Now my grandmother worked. She worked for you might remember a department store called Heck Company. Uh,
Sure.
yeah, so she worked for Heck Company.
We had that
And,
out here in Arizona, I think. Hecht. Or
well,
somewhere where I worked, we had it.
in Jersey, you probably had it in Jersey.
Yeah.
HECHT Heck Company.
Yeah, I
But
remember.
yeah, it was probably because they had them on the East Coast. It was a Baltimore thing. But look, folks, again, I want everybody to go out. Tomorrow is the 80th anniversary of the landing at Normandy. There's all kinds of things going on. If you've been paying attention to the news, they've been talking about it. Even if you're here in the capital region, I just found out that Albany High School, their marching band is a very high level marching band. They're actually the kids were flown out to Normandy to play different concerts for dignitaries. So if you're here in the capital region, keep your eyes out on that. Go grab a copy of Annie's book. See what you get. Go grab a copy of all 6 of Annie's books. That's not bullshit around here, folks. You should have copies of every one of them so you can enjoy them and see what's going on. And make sure you take the time once they're out. Give a good review. Let people know.
Yes. Oh my gosh, you have no idea how important that is.
Yeah, that carries so much weight, more than I can explain to folks. I try to let people know all the time. You can think that your reviews don't mean anything, and it's just somebody pandering. The value of that review is absolutely so hard to explain to somebody what it can do for an artist of any way, shape, or form.
And even if you don't like it, it's okay to say, I don't like it. It's fine. But be honest, and if you have a moment, review a book.
It makes an absolute world of difference. And then, and if you're in Arizona, you still reffing and everything?
No, I retired into again, spinal fusion, rotator cuff surgery, but also
I walk or something, and you can just go out there and be like,
behind home plate, yeah, right. But also I'm not going to be living here most of the time. I have another home, and you're going to hate me. I live in St. Croix in the Virgin Islands in the Caribbean.
So rough.
I know. I'm a scuba diver. It's the only sport I can still do that doesn't hurt me.
Yeah, Matt. Yeah.
I can't carry my gear. I'm like, I'm going in, just drop it into me. I can't carry anything anymore.
Just push you over.
Yeah, I just roll in and go drop my gear to me. Everything's fine. And I love to dive. And I get up in the morning and I can see the Caribbean from my back porch. It's, there's Christiansted Harbor. So I'm leaving in about 2 weeks. I won't be back till November.
Oh, you poor thing. Why would you come back in? Well, I guess Arizona in November isn't bad.
Oh no, it's nice here in November. And honestly, it's hot in St. Croix now, but somehow with the ocean in front of me, I don't care.
Yeah, it doesn't bother you as much. Well, look, folks, as I always say, if you're finding Annie through me or me through Annie, like, share, follow, go ahead and take the time. You can also find her on LinkedIn, Anne Montgomery. She's very approachable person, very reachable. Make sure you do that. And for everybody that popped on, gave us those likes and follows and asked questions like Cody and my Aunt Linda, greatly appreciated. Nathan, it's greatly appreciated. I am going to have to, because Nate's probably already gone, I will ask Nate's question. We'll go over a little bit on time here. Real quick, let me ask Nate's question. Because you're in St. Croix, not Arizona, because I can imagine what it is in Arizona, but what is your go-to St. Croix meal?
Oh, wow. My partner loves to cook. He's a fabulous cook. I was previously married to a chef who taught him how to cook. And that is a tough one. Right now, I'm looking at Cuban black beans and rice and shrimp. That's pretty good. He makes amazing things. He loves to cook. Would sleep next to a smoker. I mean,
I just bought a Traeger.
Oh yeah. Honestly, grilling. I'm a very spoiled girl food wise. I also was in the restaurant. I worked in a restaurant for 5 years when I was learning to be a referee, and I was very spoiled by all the food. And so we're foodies, and I can't pick something. I
can't pick just one like go-to meal. Like you land in St. Croix and I gotta go have this. I'm here now. I got to go have this.
No, yes, I'm here now. I have to go sit on my patio and look at the Caribbean and have a glass of sweet dark rum on ice. That
Okay,
is
just
my
fair
go,
enough.
and maybe something chocolate to go with it.
Listen, and listen, folks, if you've never had good dark liquor and chocolate, there is a different level in that. Like
I
that,
make a
that's something.
mean rum sauce too. A rum sauce that I pour over chocolate cake. And oh
Ooh.
my gosh, to me, and that's what we get there. We open all the windows. We go out on the patio and we sit there and we pour our rum. We're like, everything.
I get it. I get it. Well, look, folks, if you're enjoying what you're listening to here, make sure you join us next week. We have Lane, and I'm going to butcher his last name, Kawakoka, the Wealth Elevator. Lane is the author of the book Wealth Elevator, owns 10,000 rental units, and is a leader in the Huey Deal Pipeline Club, which acquired over $2.14 billion in real estate by syndicating over $200 million of private equity in 2016. So we're going to be talking about how can you get involved in stuff like this. Everybody's always like, if you read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, he was a Marine, Robert Kiyosaki, and you have all these people, and everybody's always trying to figure it out. Well, maybe this will be the time where you can figure it out. As always, give us a like, share, follow. All those kind of things truly do matter to us. Now, Annie, don't log off on me right after this. We got to talk for just a moment.
Okay.
But as we do it, to see if you remember this, if you remember what's about to happen here, as we do in every episode, the guest always gets the final word. So what's the final word for us?
Never forget our veterans. Never. We just had Memorial Day, and people talking about parties and events and what can we do in sales. I'm like, no, it's to remember. We need to remember always. And it's something I wish more people paid attention to. And just saying thank you for your service isn't enough.
Alrighty, folks, be sure to push your stool in. This has been a Second Front podcast presentation found on Apple, Spotify, and wherever podcasts can be found.